What's up YouTube, this is GalacticGod, and I'm coming at you today with a Prophecy deck profile. This of course is the deck that I used in the most recent Anaheim Regional. So I'm going to kind of quickly go over all the cards, what I feel about some of the card choices, what I might change or what I might do different in future builds. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Alright, so for the monsters, we are of course playing not one, not two, but three copies of the High Priestess of Prophecy, our big boss monster of the deck. From there we have three copies of Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, one copy of Justice, one copy of Temperance, and that's going to kind of round up the Prophecy aspect of the deck. I'm also playing two copies of Breaker the Magical Warrior, Tecton Injection Fairy Lily, a Tecton CopyCat, two copies of Tragoedia, and then three copies of Effect Veiler. And that's going to kind of round up the monster count. So for spells and traps, I of course have three copies of Spellbook of Secrets, two copies of Masters, two copies of the Tower, two copies of Fate, two copies of Eternity, one Wisdom, one Life, one Power, and then one Star Hall. I know a lot of people really don't dig on Star Hall, but every time I actually played this card or drew into it or something, it really helped me out quite a bit. I'll kind of go over that a little bit more in depth in a little bit. From there we have Heavy Storm, Dark Hole, Monster Reborn, Book of Moon, and then three copies of Wonder Wand to kind of round up the spells. For traps, we're playing just two copies of Threatening Roar. Now originally, actually almost right before we went, I was playing just the one copy of Treacherous, and then my buddies kept telling me, he's like, oh no, you need to take Treacherous out for Threatening Roar, you need to be more worried about getting OTK'd and this and that kind of stuff, and I went ahead and took that out and then just put in the two Roars instead. I'm not sure if I liked it better or not. Sometimes I think Treacherous works really good because you can get that monster, that monster destruction in there when they least expect it. But Threatening did help out when I felt like I was about to be killed for the game. Alright, so for the extra deck, I'm playing Temperance Magician, Arcanite Magician, Black Rose Dragon, Scrap Dragon, Stardust Dragon. For Exceeds, I got Gachi, Leviair, Wind-Up Zenmaines, Gagaga Cowboy, number 50, Abyss Dweller, Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger, two copies of number 11 Big Eye, and the Superdreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max to kind of round things up. Alright, so for my side deck, I was playing three copies of Royal Decree, two copies of Bottomless, two copies of Mind Crush, two copies of Soul Drain, and I had a Tecton Breakthrough skill. I also played two copies of Soul Taker, one Dimensional Fissure, and then two copies of Death's Wombat, because I hate burn decks. I hate having to play against them, and my buddies were like, don't side Death's Wombats. You're never going to play burn. You're never going to have to deal with that. And I was like, I don't care. I always side two Death's Wombats whenever I go to an event, because I just hate playing against burn decks. I hate playing against any of those kind of like Exodia or anything like that. That's why you have the decrees in there as well as other things, but I really hate playing against burn. Anyhow, that was the side deck. Alright, so for some of my card choices, I played one Temperance and one Justice. I kind of like doing it this way instead of having just two Justices, because Justice does leave the field and can leave you open unless you have that Trag or something like that. Temperance is also cool because you can get your big boss monster High Priestess out right away. You don't have to wait a turn, especially if you don't have three Spellbooks in hand. You might only have one or two, even with Justice's effect, and it could be kind of a dead card in hand. So I kind of like playing one of each. They both worked out really good for me in the tournament. I used Temperance quite a few times to get High Priestess out, and same thing with Justice, so I kind of like it like that. I think it works good. The two copies of Breaker for not only just macro, because I'm not maining or even siding any MSTs, but it's also to help me get over Thunder King. I can either crash into Thunder King with Breaker, or if I have a Star Hall out with a counter or two, I can get right over it. If I play Power on Breaker, then I can get over Thunder King and then search, and then pop a back row if need be. It's just kind of real versatile, or I can summon Breaker, pop the back row that they have, then play Power, then get over their Thunder King, then search, so it works out pretty good. At one point I was trying 3, then I tried 1, but I think 2 is definitely a good mix of it. We also have CopyCat and Injection Fairy Lily in the deck. Injection Fairy Lily is by far the MVP monster of the deck. Every time I would drop this card, people just did not know what to do or how they were going to get around it. They didn't have like a dark hole or something, especially if I had quite a bit of life points. They just, every time I dropped Lily, they were like, oh my god. I remember at one point, I was in one of the duels, and somebody, they looked through my graveyard, and they were like, okay, well, you only have, 3 spell books in there, so I'm just going to destroy tower now. So, hoping to get, out, I would just drop, Temperance or a Breaker or an Effect Veiler or something like that with Tower's effect. And then I brought out Lily, and they had to, totally rethink their whole strategy because now I had essentially, a boss monster out there that they couldn't get around, so it was kind of cool. CopyCat, I almost never saw him the whole time. He's an interesting tech card. He worked really good when I was testing the deck, but like I said, I didn't really see him but a couple times. One of the times didn't work out for me. Another time it did, so this is the only card I might think about changing out that's in the monster lineup. Another thing I might think about changing is just going down to 1 tower. I wanted to play 2 just for when the fact that if they do destroy tower early on, I have to then wait to summon High Priestess, remove tower with Priestess effect or with Fate's effect, and then grab it back with Eternity. And sometimes I feel that can be kind of slow, and if need be, I want to be able to grab the second tower and start plussing again right away instead of having to wait to do that kind of lineup. There is, the problem of drawing into a tower, though, once you have tower already out, and that can be kind of an issue, as it happened to me a few times in the tournament. So I might start playtesting a lot more with just 1 and see how well, the benefits of that are. Fate is by far the MVP spell of the deck. Every time I got a Fate, it just threw my opponent for a loop. I would just remove their boss monsters constantly, problem spells, they'd flip over, macro, I'd chain, Fate and just remove it or something, and worked out really well for me the whole tournament. The only time, it was kind of a hindrance is if I would draw some weird, crazy mix of spellbook cards that just did not jive well together. Overall, though, Fate won me so many games. Definitely was the MVP spell card of the deck. It just allowed me to do so much and get around so many obstacles. Star Hall is another card that I know a lot of people don't really care for, but it worked out so well for me in the tournament. If I could open up with a Star Hall or with a Spellbook Magician and then a Spellbook of Secrets, this was going to get so many counters on it right away. And once it starts, gaining counters, people kind of dismiss it at first, they don't want to waste an MST or anything on it, but because you're just going to give your opponent an immediate plus. But if they let it sit there, all of a sudden your weak spellcaster monsters then become really strong, and and they don't want to destroy them because now you destroy it, you're going to give them a High Priestess to their hand. They definitely don't want to see that. I remember at one point, I had this in my back row, and my opponent set a bunch of Speller Traps, and I just played my own heavy to destroy all his Speller Trap cards, and then went and was able to grab a High Priestess with it. Just really, really cool. Very, very neat card. I mean, you don't want to kind of draw it at the wrong time, I guess, but I think one of them works out really good, and I'm going to continue testing with it, but I like it a lot. Alright, so I'm not really sure if I like Threatening more than Treacherous. I mean, Treacherous allows me to be a lot more aggressive and take out their big monsters when they go to swarm the field, whereas Threatening will allow me to live a turn, but then I still have to draw into some kind of resources to get rid of those monsters. Although Threatening did work out for me at one point in the tournament when I was down to I think it was 12 or 1100 life points or something, and my opponent summoned a weenie monster that they normally would not have, just to try and get in that last bit of damage, and I was able to go ahead and Threatening Roar that, and then kind of come back and summon some bigger monsters the next turn. Whereas if I had Treacherous, I wouldn't have been able to do anything because they just had one monster on the field, and they probably would have killed me that turn. So I think both have merits, and they're both pretty good. I'm going to keep playtesting with both the Threatenings and then just the Treacherous as well. Alright, YouTube, there you have it. This was the Prophecy deck I used at the most recent Anaheim Regionals. For those of you who didn't see my last video, I won the first 3 rounds of the tournament, and then I lost the next 3, so I had a record of 3-3 when I ultimately dropped. I think the deck performed relatively pretty well, though. In the comment section below, make sure you let me know what you think of my build, what you think I could do to, help change it, improve it, all that kind of stuff. Any kind of helpful feedback is, of course, always most well appreciated. And I guess that's about it for now. This is GalacticGod, out.